The night was cold, the kind that gets deep into your bones and makes you want any kind of warmth. But what happened next between me and my son shook me in a way I never expected and made me question everything. I stood in the kitchen, stirring a pot of soup, the steam rising in soft curls that fogged the window above the sink. My name is Clara, and at 44, I have worn the badge of single motherhood for most of my life. My son, Ethan, now 22, has been my anchor, my reason to keep going. Through the storms of life, we've always been a team, just the two of us, navigating the world with a closeness that felt unbreakable. But that night, something shifted, and I found myself standing on the edge of a precipice I never knew existed. Ethan came home late, his broad shoulders slumped, his dark hair falling into his eyes. He looked exhausted, the kind of tired that goes beyond physical. He'd been juggling a full-time job at a local bookstore and night classes at the community college. Chasing a degree in literature, his passion for books was something we shared. But lately, I could see the weight of his ambitions pressing down on him. "Mom," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. "I don't feel so great." His hazel eyes, usually bright with a quiet intensity, were dulled, shadowed with fatigue. I set the ladle down, my heart tightening with worry. "You look wiped out, sweetheart. Why don't you lie down for a bit? My bed's warm, and the house is freezing tonight." Our old Victorian home with its creaky floors and drafty windows always took forever to heat up in the winter. Ethan nodded, too tired to argue, and shuffled toward my bedroom. I followed, grabbing a heavy quilt from the linen closet, my maternal instincts kicking into overdrive. All I wanted was to make him feel safe, to ease the strain I could see etched into his face dot in my room. Ethan collapsed onto the bed, his long frame sinking into the mattress. I draped the quilt over him, tucking it around his shoulders like I used to when he was a boy. He murmured a quiet "Thanks, Mom," and closed his eyes. For a moment, it felt like any other night. Me taking care of him trusting me to make things better. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching the rise and fall of his chest, feeling a familiar warmth in my chest. But then I did something I hadn't planned. I lay down beside him, telling myself it was just to keep him warm, to share the quilt in the chilly room. At first, it was innocent. The room was quiet, save for the soft hum of the heater struggling to keep up. Ethan's breathing slowed, and I thought he'd fallen asleep. But then he shifted, moving closer, his body pressing against mine under the weight of the quilt. My breath caught, a flicker of unease sparking in my chest. He was just seeking warmth, I told myself, like when he was little and would crawl into my bed during a thunderstorm. But when his arm draped over me, pulling me gently closer, the air in the room seemed to thicken. I froze, my heart pounding. His touch was soft, familiar, but there was something different in it, a weight I couldn't name. I wanted to laugh it off, to say something like to break the moment, but my voice wouldn't come. His warmth enveloped me, his steady breathing a contrast to the chaos in my mind. I told myself it was nothing, just a mother comforting her son. But then I felt it, a hardness under the quilt, unmistakable and jarring. My pulse raced, a wave of panic crashing over me. This wasn't right. This wasn't supposed to happen. I lay there rigid, my thoughts spiraling. Ethan was my son, my boy, the one I'd raised through sleepless nights and endless sacrifices. But in that moment, with his body so close, I felt something else. A pull, a warmth that wasn't maternal, that scared me to my core. I hated myself for it, for even noticing the way his breath felt against my neck, the way his fingers rested lightly on my arm. I wanted to push him away, to leap from the bed and run, but I couldn't move. The silence was deafening, each second stretching into eternity. Ethan stirred, his head lifting slightly. His eyes met mine, and I saw something there that made my stomach twist. A softness, a vulnerability that mirrored my own confusion. "Mum," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Is this okay?" His gaze searched mine as if he was as lost as I was. Caught in the same strange current, I opened my mouth to speak, to say something, anything to break the spell. But no words came. Instead, I nodded, a small, hesitant movement that felt like a betrayal of everything I knew. He leaned closer, his face inches from mine. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure he could hear it. His hand moved, brushing a strand of hair from my face, a gesture so tender it made my chest ache. I closed my eyes, trying to anchor myself to remind myself who we were. That the warmth of his touch, the quiet intensity of his presence pulled me under for a moment. I let myself feel it. The closeness, the connection that felt both familiar and terrifyingly new. Then just as quickly, Ethan pulled back. He let out a shaky laugh, rubbing the back of his neck. His cheeks flushed. "Sorry, Mom," he said, his voice thick with embarrassment. "I didn't mean to. I don't know what that was." The spell broke and reality crashed back in. I sat up, my hands trembling, trying to steady my breathing. "It's okay, Ethan," I said, forcing a smile that felt brittle. "We're both just tired. It's been a long day, but it wasn't okay." The air between us was charged, heavy, with unspoken questions. I wanted to reach out, to hug him and pretend nothing had changed. But I couldn't. The moment had shifted something fundamental, and I didn't know how to fix it. Before I could say more, the doorbell rang, a sharp sound that cut through the tension. Like a knife, I jumped, grateful for the interruption, and hurried to the door. It was our neighbor, Tom, a kind man in his late 50s with a weathered face and a warm smile. He held a flashlight, his coat dusted with snow. "Hey, Clara," he said, his voice gentle. "I saw your lights on and thought I'd check in. It's getting cold out there. Any trouble with the heater?" His concern was genuine, and for a moment I felt grounded by his presence, as if the normality of his visit could erase the strangeness of the night. "Thanks, Tom," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "The heat has been acting up. Actually, if you wouldn't mind taking a look." I stepped aside, letting him in, hyper-aware of Ethan watching from the hallway. His expression was unreadable, but there was a tightness in his jaw, a flicker of something that looked like jealousy. The thought sent a chill through me. Was he feeling the same tangled emotions I was? Or was I projecting my own confusion onto him? Tom moved to the living room, kneeling by the heater, his tools clinking softly. He made small talk, asking about Ethan's classes, about my job at the library. I answered automatically, my mind elsewhere. Ethan stayed in the hallway, his arms crossed, his eyes darting between me and Tom. The tension in the room was palpable, a silent battle I didn't understand. I wanted to scream, to demand answers from Ethan, from myself, but I kept my composure, smiling at Tom's jokes, pretending. Everything was fine. When Tom finished, he stood, brushing his hands on his jeans. "All set, Clara. Call me if it acts up again." He glanced at Ethan, his smile faltering for a fraction of a second as if he sensed the undercurrent in the room. I thanked him, walking him to the door, and as it closed behind him, the silence returned heavier than before. Ethan was still in the hallway, his posture rigid. "You okay?" I asked, my voice soft. "Seeing him?" He shrugged, his eyes avoiding mine. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just didn't expect Tom to show up." His tone was clipped, and I felt a pang of guilt, though I wasn't sure why. I wanted to press him to ask what was wrong, but he turned and walked to his room, the door closing with a soft click. That felt final. I stood there, alone in the dim light of the living room, my heart heavy with a mix of relief and dread. The night had unraveled something between us, something I couldn't name but couldn't ignore. I made my way to my room, sinking onto the bed, my thoughts a tangled mess. I replayed every moment, the warmth of Ethan's touch, the look in his eyes, the way my own heart had betrayed me. I felt like a stranger in my own skin, torn between love for my son and a confusion that made me question everything. A soft knock at the door startled me. My pulse quickened, hope and fear mingling in my chest. "Come in," I called, my voice steadier than I felt. Ethan stepped inside, his expression guarded, his hands shoved into his pockets. He sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor, the silence stretching between us like a chasm. "Mum," he said finally, his voice low. "I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on with me. That earlier, it was weird, and I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable." His words were halting, each one laced with frustration and vulnerability. I could see the conflict in his eyes, the same storm I was battling. I reached out, placing a hand on his arm. The gesture meant to comfort, but feeling charged with something more. "Ethan, it's okay," I said softly. "We're both, I don't know. Maybe. We're both just feeling things we don't understand. It's been just us for so long, and sometimes that makes things complicated." My voice trembled, but I held his gaze, willing him to see that I was as lost as he was. He nodded, his eyes searching mine, a mix of longing and uncertainty flickering in their depths. "I don't want to mess this up," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. You're everything to me." The rawness of his words hit me like a wave, and I felt tears prick my eyes. I wanted to pull him close to promise that we'd figure it out, but I hesitated, unsure if touch would heal or wound. Instead, I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Maybe we need to take a step back," I said, my voice gentle but firm. "We don't have to have all the answers tonight. Let's just give it time." "Okay." He nodded, and then, in a gesture that caught me off guard, he leaned his head on my shoulder the way he used to when he was small. The familiarity of it warmed me, but the undercurrent of tension remained, a reminder that things weren't the same. I wrapped an arm around him, holding him close, my heart aching with love and confusion. We sat like that for a long time. The silence, a fragile bridge between us. I knew we couldn't stay in this moment forever, that we'd have to face the questions looming over us. But for now, it was enough to be here together, even if the path ahead was uncertain. The knock at the door came again, sharp and insistent. I tensed, pulling away from Ethan, our eyes meeting in mutual surprise. I stood, my legs unsteady, and opened the door to find Tom again, his face etched with concern. "Clara, I'm sorry to barge in," he said, his voice urgent. "You seemed off earlier, and I just wanted to make sure you're okay." I glanced back at Ethan, who was watching us, his expression unreadable. "We're fine, Tom," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "Just a quiet night." He studied me, then Ethan, his eyes narrowing slightly, as if he could sense the weight in them. All right," he said finally. "I'm next door if you need me." He left and I closed the door, leaning against it, my heart racing. Ethan stood, moving closer, his eyes locked on mine. "Mom," he said, his voice trembling. "Maybe we shouldn't push this. Maybe we need time." His words mirrored my own thoughts. And I nodded, relief and sorrow mingling in my chest. You're right, I said softly. We'll figure it out. We just need time. He nodded and we stood there, the space between us both a comfort and a barrier. As he turned to leave, I felt a pang of loss, but also a flicker of hope. Whatever this was, we'd face it together, one step at a time. Thank you for staying with us through this story. If you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button for Broken Vows. Your support means the world and keeps us sharing stories that resonate. Don't forget to like if this tale moved you and join our community for more heartfelt narratives.